Captain Han Wook stared at the massive asteroid floating in front of his ship and wiped sweat from his forehead. The mining laser had been cutting through rock for 6 hours straight, and the hull temperature was getting too high for comfort. He needed to give the systems a break before something important melted. The Iron Hammer was not the prettiest ship in space, but it got the job done. Its thick armor plating was scarred from years of asteroid impacts, and its weapons were basic. But reliable. Han Wook had been running mining operations in the Kepler Belt for 12 years and knew every sound his ship made. "Captain, we need to shut down the main laser for cooling," called out Park Soo from the engineering station. The young man was brilliant with machines, but still learning that space mining was more about patience than speed. "Do it," Han Wook replied, and settled back in his command chair. Around him, the bridge hummed with quiet activity. Kim Nari monitored communications, while Lee Tae kept watch on the sensor readings. They were deep in unexplored space where pirates and worse things sometimes lurked. The asteroid they were cutting contained rare metals that would bring good money back on Earth. Enough to keep his crew paid and his ship running for another few months. It was honest work, even if it was dangerous and lonely. Park Soo began the cooling cycle, and the ship grew quieter as the main systems powered down. Han Wook used the break to review their cargo manifest. They had filled 60% of their holds and could probably finish the job in 2 more days. "Captain, I am picking up something strange," Kim Nari said from her station. She had been monitoring the usual background chatter of space traffic, but now her screen showed something different. "What kind of strange?" Han Wook asked, and walked over to look at her displays. "It is a transmission, but not from any human source," she replied, and adjusted her headset. "The signal is weak and breaking up, but it seems to be some kind of distress call." Han Wook felt his stomach tighten. Distress calls in empty space usually meant trouble, and trouble meant danger for small mining ships like his. But you could not ignore someone calling for help, even if they might be aliens. "Can you clean up the signal?" he asked. Kim Nari worked her controls, and slowly the static cleared. What came through the speakers made everyone on the bridge stop what they were doing and listen. The voice was not human, but the universal translator built into their communication system began working on the alien language. Words started appearing on the screen as the computer tried to make sense of what it was hearing. "To any who receive this message, we beg for assistance," the translation read. "Our worlds are under attack by the Vextar Empire, and our people are dying. We have no weapons to fight them, and our ships cannot escape their hunters. Please, if there is anyone out there who can help us, send aid to the Kethri system." The message repeated several times, then cut to static. Han Wook stared at the screen, feeling the weight of what they had just heard. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was being destroyed, and they were calling for help. "Sir, what do we do?" asked Lee Tae from his security station. Han Wook did not answer right away. He had served in the Earth Defense Force before becoming a miner, and knew that military decisions should not be made quickly, but he also knew that people were dying. While he stood there thinking, Kim Nari. "Can you trace where that signal came from?" he asked. "Working on it, Captain," she replied, and began running calculations. "The signal originated approximately 40 light years from here in a system that is not on our star charts. That puts it way outside human space," Park Soo said. "We have never made contact with aliens before, and now we are hearing them ask for help against some kind of empire." Han Wook walked back to his command chair and sat down heavily. The decision he made in the next few minutes could change everything. Not just for his crew, but for all of humanity. First contact with alien life was supposed to happen through diplomats and scientists, not through a mining ship picking up a distress call. "Sir, we cannot ignore this," Kim Nari said quietly. "If there really are people out there being killed, we have to do something." "What can we do?" asked Park Soo. "We are just a mining ship with basic weapons. If this Vextar Empire is powerful enough to attack entire star systems, what could we possibly do to help?" Lee Tae spoke up from his station. "We could contact Earth Defense Command and let them know what we found. They would know how to handle first contact with aliens." That made sense, but Han Wook knew it would take weeks for a message to reach Earth, and weeks more for any response to come back. By then, the aliens calling for help might all be dead. "Captain, I am picking up more transmissions," Kim Nari announced. Multiple distress calls from different sources, all in the same area of space. The bridge fell silent as more alien voices filled the air. Some were calm and desperate, Others were panicked and breaking down. The universal translator worked overtime. To convert the alien languages into words they could understand, our evacuation ships are under attack, one voice said. The Vextar are hunting our civilians like animals. This is Colony World 7 requesting immediate assistance, called another. Enemy forces are landing on the surface and we have no way to fight them. All defenders are dead, came a third transmission, filled with static. Repeat, all defenders are dead. Colony is lost. Han Wook felt anger building in his chest as he listened to the messages. Whoever these Vextar were, they seemed to be attacking helpless civilians rather than fighting military targets. It reminded him of the worst human conflicts where armies targeted innocent people. Sir, orders, asked Lee. Han Wook made his decision. Kim Nari, record everything we are hearing and prepare a data packet for transmission to Earth. Include our current position and all the alien communications we have intercepted. Yes, sir, she replied and began working. Park Soo. How long to get our mining gear secured and ready for travel? He asked. About 2 hours, Captain. The engineer replied. Are we heading back to human space? Eventually, Han Wook said. But first, we are going to take a look at what is happening out there. Captain, that could be very dangerous, warned Lee Tae. We do not know anything about these aliens or their technology. I know, Han Wook replied. But I also know that right now someone is calling for help and we might be the only ones who heard them. He stood up and looked at his crew. They were all young and had signed on for mining work, not military action, but he could see in their faces that they understood what was at stake. I will not order anyone to come with me, he said. If you want to take the shuttle back to the nearest station, I will understand, but I am going to see if there is anything we can do to help those people. Park Soo was the first to speak. I am with you, Captain. My grandfather always said you help people when they need it, no matter who they are. Same here, said Kim Nari. Besides, someone needs to operate the communications systems. Lee Tae nodded. If we are going into a war zone, we will need security. Count me in. Han Wook felt proud of his crew, but also worried about what they might be getting into. The Iron Hammer was tough, but not built for combat against advanced alien technology. All right, then, he said. Prepare for departure as soon as the mining gear is secured, plot a course for the source of those transmissions, and send that data packet to Earth with our intentions. As his crew went to work, Han Wook returned to his chair and listened to more. Alien distress calls filling the bridge. Somewhere out there, people were dying and calling for help. Humanity had never been invited to join any galactic community, but they had also never needed permission to do what was right. The Iron Hammer finished securing its equipment and turned toward unknown space, carrying 4 humans who had no idea they were about to change the galaxy forever. The Iron Hammer arrived at Mining Station Delta 7 after 3 days of hard travel, and Han Wook could see that word of their discovery had already spread. Ships were docked that had no business being at a remote mining outpost and uniformed. Personnel were waiting at the airlock. Admiral Cho Bin stepped aboard the moment the docking tube connected, and Han Wook could see the tension in the older man's face. They had served together years ago when Han Wook was still in the military, and he knew that expression meant big trouble. Captain Han, we need to talk immediately, the Admiral said and gestured toward the conference room. Bring your crew and all, the data you collected. The briefing room filled quickly with military officers Han Wook did not recognize. Dr. Yoon Hee introduced herself as a xenobiologist and first contact specialist, while Commander Jang Ho looked like he had been pulled away. From training Marines, show them the recordings, Admiral Cho Bin ordered, and Kim Nari began playing the alien transmissions they had intercepted. The room grew quiet as the desperate voices filled the air, asking for help that might never come. How many different species are we hearing? Asked Dr. Yoon Hee. At least 4 distinct language patterns. Kim Nari replied. But the universal translator indicates they are all talking about the same enemy, this Vextar Empire. Commander Jang Ho leaned forward. What do we know about their military capabilities? Not much, Han Wook admitted. The aliens seem to have no effective weapons, and their ships cannot outrun the attackers. It sounds like they are being hunted rather than fighting a war. Admiral Cho Bin activated a holographic display showing the sector of space where the transmissions originated. Intelligence estimates this empire has already consumed 17 star systems based on the communications we have decoded. 17 systems, whispered Park Soo. How many people could that be? Billions. Dr. Yoon-hee said quietly, possibly trillions, depending on population densities. The weight of those numbers settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Han Wook had thought they were dealing with a local conflict, but this was something much larger and more terrible. Sir, what is Earth Defense Command planning to do? He asked. Admiral Cho Bin was quiet for a moment, then activated another display showing ship deployments throughout human space. We are mobilizing Task Force Hammer, 200 warships, and 50,000 Marines. The largest fleet we have ever assembled, added Commander Jang Ho. But the politicians want us to proceed carefully. First contact protocols require extensive consultation and diplomatic preparation. How long would that take? Asked Lee Tae-months. Dr. Yoon-hee replied, possibly years. The Xenocultural Committee alone needs to review all contact procedures. Han Wook felt anger rising in his chest. Months. While people are being murdered? That is exactly what I told the Defense Council, Admiral Cho Bin said, which is why Task Force Hammer is launching in 72 hours with or without political approval. The room erupted in discussion as officers began planning deployment schedules and supply requirements. Han Wook listened to them talk about logistics and wondered if the aliens they were trying to help would still be alive when the human fleet finally arrived. Captain Han, your ship will accompany the fleet as a guide, Admiral Cho Bin announced. You found them so you get to introduce us. Sir, we are not equipped for military action, Han Wook pointed out. You will stay with the command ship and provide intelligence support, the Admiral replied. Besides, someone needs to handle communications with the aliens. Dr. Yoon-hee had been studying the alien transmissions, and now she looked up with concern on her face. Admiral, I am detecting a pattern in these distress calls that worries me. What kind of pattern? He asked. The transmissions are becoming less frequent and coming from fewer sources, she explained. Either the aliens are being systematically destroyed or they are losing the ability to communicate. Commander Jang Ho checked his tactical display. How long since the last transmission? 18 hours, Kim Nari answered, and the signal strength has been decreasing steadily. The implications hung in the air like a death sentence. Somewhere 40 light-years away, an entire civilization might be drawing its last breath while humans debated proper procedures. That settles it. Admiral Cho Bin declared, Task Force Hammer launches in 24 hours. We can handle the political consequences later. The meeting broke up as officers rushed to prepare their ships, and Han Wook found himself alone with Dr. Yoon-hee, who was still studying the alien communications. Doctor, what do you think we are going to find when we get there? He asked. She looked up from her datapad with sadness in her eyes. Honestly, Captain, I think we might be too late. The pattern suggests this empire does not just conquer worlds, they completely destroy any resistance. Then why are we going? Because maybe we can save some of them, she replied. And because someone needs to send a message that this kind of behavior has consequences. Han Wook nodded and returned to his ship where his crew was preparing for departure. Park Soo was checking all systems while Kim Nari monitored for new alien transmissions, and Lee Tae was studying tactical data about the human fleet they would be joining. Any word from the aliens? Han Wook asked. Nothing for 20 hours, Kim Nari replied. Either they stopped broadcasting or there is no one left to broadcast. The next day, Task Force Hammer assembled in space above Delta 7, and Han Wook had never seen so many human warships in one place. Heavy cruisers and battleships formed. The core, while destroyers and frigates provided escort, massive carriers held thousands of fighters, and transport ships carried enough Marines to conquer planets. Admiral Cho Bin's flagship was the Soul's Pride, a kilometer-long battleship that could level continents. Han Wook docked the iron hammer to its hull and transferred to the Military Command Center, where dozens of officers were coordinating the largest military operation in human history. All ships report ready for departure, announced the Fleet Communications Officer. Any new intelligence on our destination? Admiral Cho Bin asked. Dr. Yoon-hee shook her head. Still no transmissions from the alien sources, but long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures in that region of space. What kind of energy signatures? Asked Commander Jang Ho. The kind you get from orbital bombardment, she replied grimly. Admiral Chobin stood at the center of the command deck and looked out at his fleet. 200 ships crewed by the best humanity had to offer. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. The fleet disappeared into the strange realm between dimensions that allowed faster-than-light travel. Han Wook watched the stars stretch into lines as they raced toward a star system none of them had ever seen. Estimated travel time 48 hours, reported the navigation officer. "Sir, what are our rules of engagement when we arrive?" asked Commander. Jang Ho Admiral Chobin was quiet for a moment, then spoke in a voice that carried throughout the command center. "Simple. We save whoever can be saved, and we send a message that this sector of space is now under human protection. And if the Empire wants to fight, then we give them a fight they will never forget." The Admiral replied. Han Wook felt a chill run down his spine as he realized what they were really doing. Humanity was about to announce its presence to the galaxy, not through diplomacy or trade, but through the application of overwhelming military force. Dr. Yoon Hee approached him with a data pad, showing her analysis of the alien communications. "Captain, I have been studying the linguistic patterns, and I think I understand what kind of species we are trying to help. What did you find? Based on their language structure and the content of their messages, I believe they are a peaceful species with no military tradition," she explained. "They speak of art and medicine and growth, but never of war or weapons." So they had no way to defend themselves. "Exactly," she confirmed. "And this Vextar Empire seems to target exactly these kinds of civilizations. They are predators who hunt those who cannot fight back." Han Wook thought about that as the fleet raced through hyperspace toward an unknown enemy. Humanity had never been particularly peaceful, and their entire history was filled with wars and conflicts. Maybe that made them the wrong species to handle first contact, or maybe it made them exactly the right species to handle this particular situation. "Doctor, what do you think the galaxy will make of us when this is over?" he asked. She smiled grimly. "I think they are going to be very surprised to learn that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that hunts other predators." Task Force Hammer dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kethri system, and what they found made even experienced military officers stop and stare in horror. The space around the fourth planet was filled with debris that had once been ships, and the planet itself glowed with the fires of orbital bombardment. "Sensors are detecting massive energy readings around the planet," reported Lieutenant Song Ara from her tactical station. "Multiple large vessels in attack formation." Admiral Chobin stepped forward to study the holographic display. "How many enemy ships?" 43 confirmed contacts, sir," she replied. "Most are focused around what appears to be evacuation ships, trying to escape the planet." Han Wook watched the tactical display update and felt sick as he realized what they were seeing. The Vextar Empire was not just conquering the planet, they were hunting down civilian refugees who were trying to escape, sir. "I am detecting weapons fire," announced the sensor operator. "The enemy ships are firing on unarmed vessels." Dr. Yoon Hee moved to her analysis station and began studying the energy patterns. "Those are not military targets. The ships being attacked have no armor or weapons. They are civilian transports. They are hunting them for sport," said Commander Jang Ho quietly. Admiral Chobin's face hardened as he watched enemy ships pursue fleeing civilians across his display. "All ships battle stations, launch all fighters, target the enemy vessels attacking evacuation ships." Alarms sounded throughout the massive fleet as 200 human warships prepared for combat. Captain Bei Jin launched from the carrier Souls, Pride leading a squadron of fighters, while Marine Sergeant Kang Min prepared his troops for possible boarding actions. "Sir, we are being scanned by the enemy fleet," reported Lieutenant Song Ara. "They appear to be trying to communicate." "Put them on screen," ordered the Admiral. The main display showed a reptilian face with cold yellow eyes and rows of sharp teeth. When it spoke, the universal translator converted its words into human language. "Unknown vessels, you have entered territory claimed by the Vextar Empire," the alien said. "Surrender your ships and prepare to be processed as new slaves, or you will be destroyed." Admiral Chobin stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. "This is Admiral Chobin of the Earth Defense Force. You will immediately cease attacking civilian vessels and withdraw from this system." The Vextar commander laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Another primitive species that thinks it can challenge the Empire. Your ships will make fine additions to our fleet after we kill your crews." "I gave you a chance," Admiral Chobin replied and cut the transmission. All ships engage, weapons free, target their largest vessels first. What happened next would later be studied in military academies across the galaxy. The human fleet split into attack formations and struck the Vextar ships with a coordination and ferocity that turned space combat into systematic demolition. Captain Bei Jin led his fighters in the first wave. Human ships built for speed and packed with missiles tore through Vextar formations that had been designed to intimidate rather than fight peer opponents. The Empire's ships were larger, but their armor was weak because they had never faced enemies that could shoot back effectively. Target their engines first, Bei Jin ordered his pilots. Cripple them, then destroy them. The Vextar had expected another easy conquest, but found themselves facing professional soldiers from a world where everything tried to kill you. Chief Petty Officer O'Dal coordinated weapons fire from the battleship. While Marine units prepared to board disabled enemy vessels, enemy flagship is trying to escape, called out Lieutenant Song Ara. Not today, Admiral Cho Bin replied. All heavy ships concentrate fire on that target. The Vextar flagship was 3 times larger than any human vessel, but it died under concentrated fire from a dozen battleships, its hull cracking open like an egg to spill atmosphere and debris into space. Around them, the battle continued as human ships methodically destroyed every Vexatar vessel while protecting the fleeing alien civilians. Sergeant Kong Min led boarding parties onto crippled enemy ships to secure intelligence and rescue any prisoners. "Sir, we are being contacted by the evacuation ships," reported Kim Nari from the communication station. "Put them through," Admiral Cho Bin ordered. The screen showed a tall, graceful being that looked like a cross between a deer and a human. Its large eyes were filled with tears as it spoke in a musical voice that the translator rendered into human words. "We do not know who you are, but you have saved our people," the alien said. "The Vextar have been hunting us for months, and we thought we would all die today. You are safe now," the admiral replied. "This is Admiral Cho Bin of the human fleet. We received your distress calls and came to help." "Humans," the alien repeated. "We have never heard of your species, but you fight like legends. How did you defeat the Empire so quickly?" Dr. Yoon-hee stepped forward. "We come from a dangerous world and have learned to fight dangerous enemies. What is your name and how many of your people need assistance?" "I am Elder Velnash of the Kethri people," the alien replied. "We have 50,000 survivors in our evacuation fleet, but our worlds are lost. The Empire has been systematically destroying our colonies for 6 months." Admiral Cho Bin studied the tactical display, which now showed only human ships and alien evacuation vessels. The entire Vextar occupation fleet had been destroyed in less than 6 hours. Elder Velnash, "We need information about this empire," he said. "How many ships do they have, and where are their main bases?" "They are vast beyond counting," the alien replied with fear in its voice. "They have conquered 17 star systems and enslaved dozens of species. Their core worlds are protected by fortress fleets that dwarf what you just destroyed." "How many people have they enslaved?" asked Dr. Yoon-hee. "Billions." Elder Velnash replied. "Entire species reduced to manual labor or kept as food sources. They view all other life as property to be owned or consumed." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Han Wook realized they had not stumbled into a local conflict, but discovered an empire built on slavery and genocide that spanned hundreds of worlds. "Admiral, what are your orders?" asked Commander Jong Ho. Admiral Cho Bin was quiet for a long moment. As he studied the reports coming in from across the fleet, not a single human ship had been seriously damaged, while they had completely destroyed an enemy force that had been terrorizing an entire star system. "Secure the area and begin rescue operations," he ordered. "I want full intelligence on the Empire's structure and capabilities." "Sir, orders from Earth Defense Command," announced the communications officer. "They want a full report on first contact procedures and diplomatic protocols." "Tell them we are a bit busy right now," the admiral replied. "The diplomats can sort it out later." Dr. Yoon-hee approached him with a datapad full of analysis. "Admiral, the Kethri are just one of many species being targeted. If what Elder Velnash told us is true, then we are looking at systematic genocide on a galactic scale." "How long do you think it would take Earth to approve a full military response?" he asked. "Months," she replied. "Maybe years. The politicians will want to study every option." Admiral Cho Bin looked out at the evacuation ships filled with alien refugees and made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Then we do not wait for approval, sir. Commander Jang Ho asked. Send a message to Earth informing them that Task Force Hammer is extending operations to protect civilian populations and eliminate threats to regional stability, the Admiral announced. Han Wook understood what the Admiral was really saying. They were going to war against an empire that spanned dozens of star systems, and they were going to do it with or without permission from Earth. Captain Bei Jin report. Came the voice of the fighter squadron leader over the communications system. All enemy vessels destroyed, sir. He replied, beginning search and rescue operations for any alien survivors. Outstanding work, Admiral Cho Bin replied, then turned to address his command staff. Ladies and gentlemen, 6 months ago, the Vextar Empire made a mistake. They started hunting people who could not fight back. He activated the fleet communications system so every ship could hear him. Today, they learned that the galaxy has new guardians, and we do not ask permission to protect the innocent. The cheers that erupted from across the fleet could be heard through every deck and bulkhead. 200 ships full of humans who had just announced to the galaxy that the age of unopposed predators was over. 3 weeks after the battle at Kethri Space, General Nam Su stood in the command center of Forward Base Hammer and studied intelligence reports that painted a picture of an empire built on systematic cruelty. The Vexatar had been conquering worlds for over a century, and their methods were always the same. Captain Ryu Ha, what did the interrogations reveal? He asked the intelligence officer who had been questioning captured Vextar prisoners. The Empire operates on a strict caste system, sir, she replied. Warrior nobles who command from heavily defended core worlds and expendable soldier drones who do the actual fighting. What about their military doctrine? Asked Colonel Park Dong from the Strategic Planning Station. They rely on overwhelming numbers and fear tactics, Captain Ryu Ha explained. Most species surrender immediately when they see the size of a Vextar fleet. Those that try to fight are quickly overwhelmed because they have no military tradition. General Nam Su nodded. That matched what they had observed in the first battle. The Vextar ships were impressive to look at, but poorly designed for actual combat against a prepared enemy. How many species are currently enslaved, he asked. Our best estimate is 40. 7 different species across 230 worlds, she replied. The Empire keeps most as manual laborers, but some are used as food sources or for entertainment. The general felt his anger building as he listened to the reports. Humanity had seen plenty of cruelty in their own history, but the scale of what the Vextar had built was staggering, so we have completed the analysis of their fortress worlds, announced Colonel Park Dong. 3 core systems, each protected by fleets of over 1,000 ships. 1,000 ship fleets, repeated General Nam Su. How do they maintain that many vessels? Slave labor, Captain Ryu Ha replied grimly. Entire species working in shipyards to build the weapons used to enslave other species. Elder Vel Nash entered the command center, escorted by Dr. Yoon Hee. The Kethri leader had been working with human intelligence to provide information about the Empire's structure and methods. General Nam Su, we have new information, Elder Vel Nash announced in his musical voice. 3 more species have sent secret messages requesting assistance. What species? The general asked. The Morden from the Outer Rim, the Zephyrian Collective, and the Talkesh Federation. The elder replied. All are scheduled for conquest in the next few months. Dr. Yoon Hee activated a holographic display showing the galactic region. If the Empire follows their usual pattern, they will hit all 3 simultaneously to prevent any coordinated resistance. General Nam Su studied the star map and began calculating distances and deployment times. How long before the attacks begin? Intelligence. Suggests 6 weeks, Captain Ryu Ha replied. The Empire is massing fleets at 3 staging areas. That gives us time to prepare, the general said. Colonel Park, what are our current force levels? Task Force Hammer plus reinforcements from Earth give us 400 ships and 100,000 Marines. Colonel Park Dong reported, additional fleets are being assembled, but will not arrive for 2 months. General Nam Su walked to the main display and looked at the positions of Empire staging areas. The Vextar were preparing to attack 3 different star systems simultaneously, which would spread their forces thin, Warrant Officer Kim Bo. "What is the status of our special weapons?" he asked. "All teams are ready, sir," replied the demolitions expert. "We have enough antimatter charges to level continents if needed." The plan that emerged over the next several hours was ambitious even by human standards. Instead of waiting for the Empire to attack the 3 species, they would strike first at the Vextar staging areas and destroy their fleets before they could launch. "Sir, this plan requires us to attack 3 different locations simultaneously," pointed out Colonel Park Dong. "If any of our forces get trapped, they will be outnumbered 10 to 1. "That is why we are not going to get trapped," General Nam Su replied. "We hit hard and fast, then withdraw before they can respond." Admiral Cho Bin arrived from the Fleet Command, ship to review the operational plan. "General, are you certain we can pull this off with our current numbers?" "Admiral, the Empire has never faced coordinated resistance," General Nam Su explained. "Their entire doctrine is based on intimidating enemies who cannot fight back effectively. And when they discover we can fight back, then we teach them that some prey animals are actually predators," the general replied. Dr. Yun He had been studying reports from the enslaved worlds, and now she approached with disturbing news. "General, we have confirmed that the Empire is preparing to eliminate several enslaved species who are no longer useful to them." "Eliminate how?" he asked. "Complete extermination," she replied. "They plan to clear the worlds for new colonies, the command." Center fell silent as everyone processed what they had just heard. Somewhere out there, billions of people were going to be murdered simply because their captors no longer found them useful. "How long do we have?" General Nam Su asked. "Days, maybe weeks," Dr. Yun He replied. "The orders have already been sent to the local commanders." General Nam Su made a decision that would commit humanity to the largest military operation in their history. "Colonel Park, initiate Operation Deathworld. All available forces will participate in simultaneous strikes against Empire targets." "Sir, that will commit our entire fleet," Admiral Cho Bin pointed out. "If we fail, there will be no reserves. Then, we do not fail." The general replied. Over the next 48 hours, human forces dispersed across dozens of star systems as small task forces positioned themselves near Empire installations. Captain Bei Jin led fighter squadrons toward the main staging area, while Marine units under Sergeant Kang Min prepared to assault fortress positions. "All units report ready," announced the Fleet Communications Officer. General Nam Su stood at the center of the command center, surrounded by displays showing human forces spread across 100 light-years of space. "Commence Operation Deathworld." What followed would later be called the 48-Hour War. Human forces struck simultaneously at every major Empire installation within reach. Antimatter charges destroyed shipyards that had taken decades to build, while fighters eliminated entire fleets before they could respond. Warrant Officer Kim Bo led demolition teams that turned Empire fortress worlds into debris fields. The Vextar had built their installations to impress rather than defend, and they crumbled under assault by professional soldiers who treated war as a science. "Target destroyed," came reports from across the operational area. "Staging area eliminated," and fortress complex neutralized filled the communications channels as the Empire's military infrastructure collapsed. The Vextar tried to respond but found their command structure crippled and their forces scattered. They had never faced an enemy that could coordinate attacks across such vast distances or strike with such precision. "Sir, we are receiving surrender requests from multiple Empire outposts," reported Captain Ryu Ha. "Accept surrenders from any installation. Willing to release their slaves immediately," General Nam Su ordered. "Destroy any that refuse." Admiral Cho Bin watched the tactical displays as human forces systematically dismantled an empire that had ruled through fear for over a century. "General, how long can we maintain this pace?" "Until there is no empire left to fight," he replied. By the end of the second day, the Vextar Empire as an organized military force had ceased to exist. Their fleets were destroyed, their shipyards were rubble, and their fortress worlds were either surrendered or reduced to asteroid fields. "Sir, final casualty reports," announced Colonel Park Dong. "Human losses are minimal while Empire forces have been completely eliminated." General Nam Su looked at the report showing 47 liberated species and hundreds of freed worlds, casualties among the enslaved populations. "Surprisingly low, sir," Captain Ryu Ha replied. "The speed of our attacks prevented the Empire from carrying out most of their planned executions." Dr. Yoon Hee approached with a communication from Elder Velnash. "General, the liberated species are requesting permission to send representatives to thank humanity for their actions." "Tell them they are welcome," he replied. "But also tell them that the galaxy needs to decide what comes next." "What do you mean, sir?" General Nam Su looked out at the star field where human ships were coordinating rescue operations across dozens of systems. "Doctor, we just proved that predator empires like the Vextar can be stopped, but only if someone is willing to fight them. And humanity is willing to fight them. For now," he confirmed, "but the galaxy needs to decide if they want guardians, or if they prefer to handle these problems through committees while people die." As reports continued to arrive of liberated worlds and freed peoples, General Nam Su realized that humanity had accidentally become the galaxy's immune system, responding to threats that other species could not or would not address. The wrong hands had received that alien distress call, but from the perspective of billions of freed slaves, they had been exactly the right hands. Ambassador Li Young stood before the Galactic Council for the first time in human history and looked out at representatives from over 200 species. The massive chamber on the neutral world of Sanctuary had been built to accommodate every known form of intelligent life, and the sight was both beautiful and intimidating. 6 months had passed since the destruction of the Vextar Empire and the liberation of 47 enslaved species. The speed and thoroughness of the human campaign had sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy as ancient civilizations tried to understand what had just happened. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Li Young of the human species," announced the speaker, a tall, crystalline being whose voice chimed like bells. Li Young stepped forward to the central podium and activated the translation matrix that would convert her words into every language represented in the chamber. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, but nothing could have prepared her for the weight of so many alien eyes watching her. "Honored representatives," she began, "humanity comes before this council not seeking membership or recognition, but to address the crisis we all witnessed in the Vextar territories." A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Many species had been debating the human intervention for months, and opinions were sharply divided between those who saw humanity as saviors and those who viewed them as dangerous newcomers. For over a century, the Vextar Empire enslaved and murdered billions while this council debated proper responses. Li Young continued. 47 species cried out for help and received only committees and conferences. The Alteran delegate rose to object. "The human representative speaks as if diplomatic solutions are worthless, but violence only breeds more violence. Tell that to the species that no longer exist because they waited for diplomatic solutions," Li Young replied calmly. "Tell that to the children who were bred as food sources while this council formed study groups." Elder Velnash stood in the section reserved for newly liberated species, his musical voice carrying across the chamber. "The Kethri people formally nominate humanity for full membership in this council. They alone answered our calls for help when all others remained silent." The chamber erupted in discussion as dozens of other liberated species voiced their support, but older members of the council looked disturbed by the precedent of rewarding military action over diplomatic process. Dr. Shin-jae watched from the observation gallery and took notes on the various species' reactions. Her xenocultural analysis had identified the fundamental problem facing the galaxy, and she knew this debate would determine humanity's future role. "The Council will hear from Fleet Admiral Park C of the Human Forces," announced the Speaker Admiral. Park C had arrived with a small escort fleet to provide security for the diplomatic mission. His presence in the chamber reminded everyone that humanity now possessed the largest military force in the known galaxy. "Representatives of the Council," he began, "humanity did not seek to become involved in galactic affairs. We were simple miners and explorers who heard a distress call and chose to respond. And in responding, you destroyed an entire empire," pointed out the Valerian representative. "How do we know you will not turn that same violence against other species?" Admiral Park. Sai was quiet for a moment, then activated a holographic display showing human fleet positions throughout the former Empire territories. Because if we wanted to conquer the galaxy, we would have done it already. The display showed human ships protecting trade routes and guarding refugee settlements. Rather than occupying strategic positions, it was clear that humanity was acting as protectors rather than conquerors. Our analysis shows that most galactic species evolved as prey animals or peaceful herbivores, Dr. Shin-Jae announced from her position in the human delegation. Your civilizations developed through cooperation and conflict avoidance, which is admirable, but leaves you vulnerable to predator species. And humanity evolved differently, asked the Zephyrian representative. We evolved as persistence hunters, on a world that actively tried to kill us, Dr. Shin-Jae explained. We view unsolvable problems as challenges to overcome through superior application of force. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity represented something entirely new in galactic civilization, a species that had developed advanced technology while retaining the instincts of apex predators. What does humanity want from this council? Asked the Speaker. Ambassador Lee Young stepped forward again. We want the galaxy to decide what kind of future it wants. You can continue handling crises with committees while innocents die, or you can accept that sometimes problems require immediate action. And if we choose the diplomatic path, then you do so knowing that humanity will continue to respond to threats that endanger civilian populations regardless of council approval, she replied. We did not ask permission to stop the Vextar, and we will not ask permission to stop the next empire that thinks genocide is acceptable. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days, as species argued about the role of force in galactic civilization. Some wanted to formally censure humanity for their unilateral action, while others demanded that humans be given authority to act as galactic peacekeepers. Elder Vel Nash spoke for many of the liberated species when he addressed the council on the final day. Before the humans came, we lived in fear, knowing that predator empires could destroy us at will while the council debated proper responses. Now we know there are guardians who will fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, added the Mordan representative. We sleep peacefully because there are humans watching the dark. The final vote was closer than expected, but humanity was granted conditional membership in the Galactic Council, with the understanding that they would serve as the galaxy's immune system, responding to threats that other species could not or would not address. The human species is hereby recognized as the primary defense coordinators for the galactic community, announced the Speaker, with authority to respond to threats against civilian populations. Admiral Park Sai stood to acknowledge the decision. The human fleet accepts this responsibility and pledges to protect all sentient life regardless of species or origin. As the session ended and delegates began to disperse, Lee Young found herself surrounded by representatives from dozens of species who wanted to know more about humanity and their intentions. Ambassador, what will your people do now? Asked the Talkesh delegate. We will do what we have always done, she replied. We will protect those who need protection and eliminate threats to innocent life. And if another empire like the Vextar emerges, then they will learn the same lesson, Lee Young answered, that the galaxy has new guardians, and we do not negotiate with predators. Dr. Shin-Jae joined the conversation with her final cultural analysis. What the Council needs to understand is that humanity does not see this as a burden or responsibility. We see it as a moral obligation. Other species form committees when faced with genocide because they hope someone else will solve the problem, she continued. Humans form fleets because we believe that if we can solve the problem, then we must solve the problem. Later that evening, as the human delegation prepared to return to their ships, Captain Han Wook visited the memorial that had been erected for the victims of the Vextar Empire. Millions of names in dozens of languages covered. The black stone walls, Elder Vel Nash approached him as he stood reading the inscriptions. Captain Han, your mining ship started all of this when you decided to investigate our distress call. I just did what anyone would do, Han Wook replied. No, the elder corrected gently. You did what humans do. You heard someone calling for help, and you came running without asking what was in it for you. As Han Wook looked up at the stars where human ships now patrolled trade routes and protected refugee colonies, he realized that the Elder was right. Humanity had not changed the galaxy through superior technology or diplomatic skill. They had changed it by being exactly what they had always been, a species that could not walk away from a cry for help, even when that cry came from strangers 40 light years away. The wrong hands had received that alien SOS call, at least from the perspective of those who preferred the old galaxy, where predators hunted unopposed and committees debated while civilizations died, but from the perspective of 47 liberated species and billions of free people, those had been exactly the right hands, the hands of a species that treated protecting the innocent as a moral imperative rather than a political choice. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.